And I think that's a big issue for most people.
It's actually unreal. This is actually... We never thought we would get here, but here we are. We never thought it would actually be this blatant, but it is.
You won't, because when it comes to bloviating nonsense pertaining to the economy or what Trump may or may not be doing.
Clearly right now, things look quite bad for Trump.
It's really amazing. There is now a 10% global tariff, which the world is actually relieved about because it came down from the heights of Liberation Day. Like, do you understand what a feat that was? That is seen as an level. This congressman seems to think that having bad polling numbers is an impeachable offense. It is utterly laughable, and it's because the Democrats have no agenda.
This is going to be
People often say that days feel like hours when they're relaxing on the beach, but they also say it when they're highly stressed or having dental surgery. We could probably all agree that President Trump's first 100 days have felt more like 1,000. But is America basking in the sun while dreaming of a bright future? Or is it having a root canal surgery? I'm joined by founder and CEO of the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, the author of Bad News in Second Class, Batia Ungar-Sargon, the CEO of Timcast Media, Tim Pool, and senior presidential advisor for the US Agency for Global Media, Carrie Lake. Well, star-studded panel on a starry day.
Is it all Trump sucks? Wait, what? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Cenk hopefully is here to be the strong opposition.
Will be beamed into us imminently, I'm informed. So we'll leave him as this large black square at the moment, which has a kind of ominous feel to it. Let me start with you, Tim Pool, because you're not a full-on Trumper, but you're not a full-on Trump basher. You see some good, you see some bad.
Not a full-on Trumper, but he literally campaigned for him. Okay.
When you look at the 100 days in totality, what are you giving Trump on the scoreboard?
A regular grade, I guess, B+. You know, what I would say is the Doge firings, the getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse have been beyond my expectations. I'm absolutely happy.
They quoted $2 trillion in reduction, walked away with debatably $150 billion, found no waste, fraud, or abuse, and they exceeded your expectations?
With that. Selective tariffs, I'm a huge fan and have been a huge fan for...
We don't have selective tariffs. We have market sweeping tariffs, sector sweeping tariffs, country sweeping tariffs.
For a while. I do think universal tariffs I'm very skeptical on.
Okay,
but I did vote for the man, and I do believe that it's been substantially better than what we've seen with Biden by miles. Deportation, I think, is going fairly well. I think a lot of the concerns and criticisms are overhyped, but we'll see. I think overall pretty good.
Okay.
I mean, would you have said the same thing if Joe Biden had this first 100 days?
Oh, no, wait. They're allowed to be openly hypocritical now, right? They can just say, oh, no. I actually, if Joe Biden did the exact same thing, I would actually be opposed to it. They can be openly hypocritical now, right? It's okay to do that.
Despite any kind of yardstick have been pretty chaotic, a lot of changing spinning plates, and a tariff war that so far has caused a lot of short-term damage to the US economy. In all honesty, would you have said the same analysis if it was Biden?
Probably not.
Thank you.
I do think it's fair to point out that we're all going to be biased in some regard or another. And Donald Trump's administration, his worldview and his policies more align with me morally.
Okay.
And I think that's a big issue for most people.
It's actually unreal. This is actually, we never thought we would get here, but here we are. We never thought it would actually be this blatant, but it is. You can just say all of it openly now. Asmongold does it a lot. Tim Pool does it. All these people, they just do. You can just say it openly. If Biden had done the exact same things that Donald Trump had done, would you have supported him? No. Okay.
That being said, when Joe Biden came out and he was fighting against overdraft fees, I praised it. If Joe Biden had come out and said, we're going to put tariffs in these certain areas, in fact, I never criticized him on any of the tariffs he did. I think the issue is largely criticize where criticism is due and praise where praise is due. Donald Trump has certainly made some errors. He has this gaffe going around from ABC where he appears to genuinely believe Abrego Garcia actually had MS-13 written on his hand, which is incorrect. But, you know, if he's going to make mistakes,
better they
accept
memes.
Those. Yeah. If he's going to advance policies that are in line with the majority of Americans' moral views, or at least what I support, then I'm going to be substantially more forgiving on his errors than I would be for someone like Joe Biden, who represented open borders, trans surgeries for children and
True.
other policies, which I found to be destructive.
True.
All right, Carrie Lake, you're very pro-Trump. We know that. I like Donald Trump personally. I speak to him quite regularly. I've got to say, though, this is a massive throw of the dice. He's come back into the White House. He's thrown everything, including the kitchen sink, up in the air. He has turned all establishment norms on their head. And right now, he's got very poor approval ratings and a really in shock US economy that doesn't quite know what it's going to do or how this all plays out.
Fake news,
It's
baby.
a roll of the dice, isn't it? Because at some stage, this has to work.
What did my mom? I don't remember if my mom said this or if Trump or somebody else said this, or maybe both. That the market stuff isn't real. It's just Wall Street is trying to punish Trump because they don't like him or something.
If it doesn't work, then come the midterms, the Republicans are going to be in big trouble.
Well, let me start by saying I'm pro-America, and this is why I love
So brave.
President Trump, and I love his agenda because he has put our country first. I disagree with you. I think you're talking about some really bogus polling. I know how polling works. I ran for office twice. Trust me, I know how polling works. You can make a poll say anything. And
True.
it's typical for the mainstream media to try to downplay all of the accomplishments of President Trump and his incredible administration. He has had no choice but to go in like a bull in a china shop and move quickly. We were on the verge, Piers, of losing our country after 4 abysmal years of Joe Biden. The inflation was out of control. The border was wide open. People were pouring in, including gangbangers like this.
We're starting, by the way, as of yesterday and the day before, I think we're going to start to see the real fucked up shit now, as like the harbors or whatever are empty, as the truck driver orders are now being like canceled en masse, that because now it's been like 45 days or whatever since the tariffs and shit's just not coming in. So good luck. What was this?
Clear about what we're seeing right now. This market sell-off is Wall Street trying to short President Trump's agenda. They are betting against the American worker. It's utterly despicable. Instead of doing what President Trump is doing, which is saying we're going to invest heavily in our middle class. We are no longer going to be a country in which our economy is an upward funnel of wealth from the hardest working Americans into the pockets of the international global elites. Wall Street is trying to control the president's agenda with this totally anti-American sell-off. And I think it's unbelievable that the president is not caving and that he is standing strong with the agenda that he promised the American people. This is what he was given a mandate to do. And it is so exciting to see somebody actually make good on the promises they made to the American people. Let's be clear about what we're seeing right now.
So brave.
Guy that the fake news media is acting like is the second coming, this Kilmore guy, and they're going to bat for him. They don't give a damn about the American people. And so President Trump has had to act and move quickly. I'm glad he has, and he has overwhelming support. Even Tim talked about what he did with and what he is continuing to do with DOJ, coming in and cleaning out these agencies, pulling back, slimming down the bureaucracy. It has to be done or we will lose our country. We're not out of the woods just yet. If he was doing the things Joe Biden did, if President Trump let inflation go through the roof, if President Trump opened up the borders and allowed children to be trafficked, fentanyl to be trafficked in, if President Trump was trying to start up wars rather than bring about peace, I would be very critical.
Like with Iran? Like with Israel and Gaza? Trump is literally like instigating Iran. Like, I think he's literally said that Trump actually literally said that we would strike Iran to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon. What are we talking about? Hello?
Critical of him. Trust me. I'm very realistic. And if he were doing things that were dumb and stupid, I would be all over it, calling it dumb and stupid. He's doing things that are strong, that are brilliant, and that I believe will help restore America and return us to our greatness.
All right, well, Cenk Uygur, welcome to Uncensored. You're laughing, I suspect, not in a way that indicates fulsome support for what Ms. Lake was just saying.
No, not fulsome support at all. All right, so first, usually, obviously we're always fair, right? So in the beginning, he comes out and he closed the border, and that's really popular. That's what people elected him for. He does a lot of executive orders. Now, a lot of those in the beginning, very beginning, I disagreed with instantly, but some of the later ones were more disastrous, but it looked like there was action being taken. So, and it showed in his polls. He'd already won the popular vote, and then he added to that lead in his polling. And that's back when, of course, Republicans believed in polling, when he was above 50% and popular, et cetera.
True.
And then what did he do? He pulled a Trump. He can't help himself. He loves his authoritarian tendencies, to put it mildly.
True.
He loves testing the limits of what he could do. He started talking about third term, started saying we're not doing due process, we're not listening to the courts, et cetera. And now he's lost people on all sides, the wild, outrageous tariffs. And, you know, obviously, Batya and Kerry and I had a debate about that, and I was right and they were wrong. And so I'm curious to see if they'll admit that now, because I said, of course, Trump will pull back the global tariffs. They were nuclear and ridiculous. And he pulled them back, 2 days after we had that debate. So now he's made a giant mess of it. I mean, everyone from Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Patrick Bet-David, Dave Portnoy, Joe Rogan, and yesterday, Alex Jones, all saying, what's going on here? Even they didn't sign up for violating the Constitution and due process and all of that, let alone the trillions of dollars he's bled out of the market by having no idea how to handle things economically. So he started out strong in the beginning for a couple of days, and then the rest has now just been a total debacle and disaster. And Piers, I'm always amused by both sides, and you've seen me call out both sides live as it's happening, when the Democrats were like, oh, Joe Biden's polling's in the 30s, but I bet it bounces back to the 60s, or polling doesn't matter. Whenever they're down, always polling doesn't matter, or polling is fake. And now when Trump is in the 39, 40% range, all of a sudden, here's Kari Lake telling us that polling doesn't matter or it isn't real. It's real. It's not perfect, but it's real. Trump is badly, badly hurt. I mean, geez, one last fact. 52% in a recent poll of Americans said that he was a, quote, a dangerous dictator looking to take away American democracy.
I think the big poll to look for, and that's already come out, was I think that it's a minority of Americans now by like 10 or 15 points. No, it wasn't like 36 or 37%. I don't know, so let me check. Trust Trump on the economy, which is a huge blow to Trump's legitimacy, because that was like the issue that pushed him over there, or not that pushed him over there. That was the issue that got him elected. People massively trusted Trump when it came to the economy, and I think that is that's shifted pretty dramatically now.
Including 56% of independents, and a shockingly high 17% of Republicans think he's a dangerous dictator. You really can't handle it any worse than that.
Now, I may be about to shock you.
Okay, Piers.
I mean, Batya, you know, the stats tell a story. They're not always completely infallible, but they tell a story. You know, his approval rating, Trump peaked at 52%, which was an incredible figure, given that it was down at 34% when he left office in 2021. But now it's slid back to 44%, which is an extremely rapid fall. And it's linked almost entirely to what's going on with the economy. Are you entirely confident that his strategy here is A, one, that he planned exactly how it's rolled out, and B, that it's working how he intended it?
He knows there's going to be some pain. That's because he's a hero. He's a leader.
I don't really know about his intentions. Unlike you, Piers, I don't talk to him regularly. But I can tell you that I think it's going very, very well. I know the polling is bad. He started out with a large portion of the country who really, really dislikes him. He managed to convince a lot of independents and a lot of Democrats to give him a shot and to vote for him. But that doesn't mean that he convinced people to like him. He's a very polarizing person, just his personality. But I think when you look at the agenda, he has tailor-made this agenda for the new base of the GOP, which is the working class. And when you talk to working class Americans, which I do all the time, and I hear from hundreds, if not thousands of them on a regular basis, they love this. They feel like this is exactly what they voted for. The situation with China was unsustainable. It made the elites in this country very, very wealthy, which is why elites on the left and on the right are furious at him, and why Wall Street is furious at him. But working class people see this as him turning the boat around and once again prioritizing American prosperity rather than what we've had, which is the pillaging of the middle class by the elites. And I think, you asked Tim Pool a really good question. Well, would you have cheered Joe Biden if he had done the same things that you liked here? Piers, it is unimaginable that a Democrat would do what President Trump just did, because Wall Street now is very much a funder of the Democrats. And if you look at President Obama, you look at his first action in office, it was given a $700 billion bailout to Wall Street, while 10 million Americans lost.
Were the car company bailouts part of the Obama thing, or was that under Bush? I'm trying to remember who was the car company one? Was that part of TARP, or was that a different thing? Was it Bush and Obama? I like how we're going 20 years back here, but okay.
Their homes, and that included $30 billion of bonuses to the crooks who made those Americans homeless. He chose Wall Street over Main Street because the Democrats had become the party of the rich. And what we just saw is an American president choosing Main Street over Wall Street. And that is what people are going to remember at the end of the day from these 100 days.
Okay, well, look, Trump has used the opening moments of his 100 days rally to condemn a lunatic, dumb guy for demanding his impeachment. Well, Democratic Congressman Sri Tanadar introduced formal articles of impeachment earlier this week, citing acts of tyranny and abuse of power. And he joins me now.
Obama did the bigger
welcome to you, Congressman.
Thank you.
So you're going hard on Trump. You're citing sweeping abuse of power, flagrant violations of the Constitution, acts of tyranny that undermine American democracy and threaten the rule of law. Out of interest, what has Trump done that has massively surprised you, or that most of his diehard supporters didn't vote for?
Well, look, the tariffs, this is Congress's prerogative. He took that over illegally, unconstitutionally, and made a mess of it. And that lost stock values, people's 401k value got lost. He made a mess of it, and he tried to bully China. That didn't work. And right now, prices of everything are going up. You know, he got elected because people thought he was best in handling the economy. It turned out that he made a mess of it. Prices have gone up. Now he's trying to tell Amazon, don't tell people that a tariff addition to the prices. You know, he has trampled freedom of first right, freedom. Supreme Court 9-0 decision to bring Garcia back because he did not get the due process. Trump said he ignored that ruling. He just said yesterday that he's able to bring him back, but he will not bring him back. So he's defying Supreme Court. And that was the last straw for me. And that's why I introduced the articles of impeachment to impeach. This president must go. You know, he has done unconstitutional act, illegal act, and this cannot stand.
I mean, again, I'd simply say, what do you think that he's doing that his supporters didn't expect him to do? He said, I'm going to sort the southern border out, which he indisputably has done. I'm going to get very, very tough on deportations of illegal immigrants. And all right, there are one or two cases which have got the headlines, which are certainly, in my estimation, worth examining on a due process question. But the majority of people have been deported. There seems to be no question mark.
You can't just say you're going to break the law and then break the law and then it's not breaking the law. That's not how that works.
Over. He's challenging court power in a number of areas, but has said ultimately he will abide by the will of the courts. None of this strikes me particularly, at the moment, the behavior of a dictator who's just decided none of these rules count for me.
Well, look at all the polls. You know, there are several polls that came out last week, and he's underwater in almost every category, including economy, that is supposed to be his best category. And his own supporters are now, having buyer's remorse that they made a mistake, that he hasn't worked on the economy that like he said he's going to do. Instead, he's talking about Greenland and making Canada 51st state and then military action against Mexico. None of this his supporters expected.
Can't wait for these guys to giggle at how epic that is.
To fix the economy, because that's what they thought, and he said that's what he's going to do.
How do you, out of interest, and look, I mean, this tariff war is still in a very early stage. You say that he hasn't succeeded in bullying China, as you put it. But how do you know it won't succeed over time? Trump Trump has launched a radical tariff war, no other word for it. What happens if in, say, 6 months' time, it turns out that most of the countries that the United States has trade deals with have renegotiated in America's favor, and including China? Now, in that eventuality, if the economy is doing well again, would you admit then that you were a little too hasty? In other words, should this be allowed to be given time to see if it works?
Look, we have seen the flip-flops. One day the tariffs are on. The very next day, he takes them off. He first acts tough on China, then he says he's going to be nice to China. It's about how he wakes up in the morning and whatever, he thinks about. There is no plan. There is no, plan or strategy here. It's just Trump, whatever he thinks he is. He has got a defense secretary who can't keep any secrets, sharing sensitive information on Signal chat. This is, he's got a
actually, they were authorized to use Signal. Somebody, where's Tim Pool at?
Horrible medical decisions. He's got a staff that is not, he's got a cabinet that's not competent, and he's just,
Do you agree? Do you agree that he has stemmed the issue at the southern border by 95%? That the number of people coming in illegally on that border has reduced by 95%. Do you accept that? And do you think that's been a good thing, a successful story?
I think Sam Cedar showed his hand when he said, I think Israelis have killed more civilians than we did in Iraq, and said like hundreds of thousands of Iraqis were directly killed by the USA. It just shows he has no idea what he's saying in either case. Like the direct number of Iraqi civilians killed is like 13K. So yes, that's accurate, as in Israel has passed 13K. But like, this is him saying he thinks Israel's killed. No. Oh, I understand what you're saying, but you're missing the Chomsky analysis. The lefty talking point for Iraq is that we actually killed over 500,000 civilians because of all of the sanctions and the taking of food and under counting how many civilians we killed with bombings and shit. 500,000 is the number that lefties like to give for how many civilians we killed in Iraq.
There has been some progress on protecting the borders. He's put the military on the border, but we are also seeing American citizens being deported. 2-year-old young American children have been deported. People, American citizens, children with cancer have been deported.
Good, they're expensive.
Process.
Get them out of here.
So it goes both ways.
Get them the hell out of here.
Accomplishments have been done at the border. He's also, not given the due process to many of the immigrants.
Let me bring in Tim Pool. Tim, your response to the congressman and his plan.
Let's get some real analysis in here.
He's gone ahead with it, issued articles of impeachment against Trump.
Factual but not truthful. American citizens weren't deported. That's just not true. Due process was given to all of these people. Look, if you want to argue that someone like Abrego Garcia deserved an additional hearing, a third or fourth hearing, as the actual due process they're concerned about pertaining to him is a USCIS interview to determine the current standing of Guatemala and this Barrios 18 gang, by all means, send a USCIS agent down to El Salvador, his home country, and have that conversation. But instead of actually dealing with these issues, what do we get? Bloviating nonsense. It's 100 days in, we're going to impeach him for what? Oh, he's doing all of these things wrong or whatever. Look, the American people voted for this. They're largely happy with what they want.
Oh, well, if
people have concerns about the economy.
Voted for breaking the law.
His polls are down. That's true. That's fine. But a lot of this is hyper-partisan sophistry intended to rile people up. There's two reasons why I'll tell you Trump's polls are down. And they are down. If you track Rasmussen, he dropped by about 6 or 7 points from where he was earlier. It's a swing, not a drop. He's down by 4. And this is probably due to tariffs. When you look at the corporate press, the principal institutions, ABC, et cetera, he's down in the double digits. However, if you go back to the start of his second term, you can see that the polls
I like when he was up in the triple digits.
Completely disagree with each other in ridiculous ways. One day he's up 10, the next day a new polling agency says he's down 10. The only thing you really need to track is a singular poll's movement over time, and we are seeing a minor decline. That is likely due to 401ks dropping, people being concerned about this. Does this rise the level of impeachment? No. I think you're doing this largely because you want to get your name out there, because the Democrats have no front runner. No one knows who's in charge of the party, so everyone's clawing to the top of the crabs in a barrel to try and be the pick me for 2028.
All right, Congressman.
Well,
Congressman, you're just doing this because you're a narcissist, basically.
Well, look, in the first 100 days, his numbers are lower than any other president. You had to go back 70 years.
Based.
And the only other bad bad numbers for a president in the first 100 days was Trump 45. So people have spoken.
Is that why you're doing it?
People are having a buyer's remorse. People are, I've spoken to many of Trump's supporters, and they are hugely disappointed by his actions, by his failure to fix the economy. That's number one on people's minds.
Okay, Carrie, what's your response to the congressman? Because there are lots of people saying this, and the Democrats have got their gander up a bit now. They're beginning to marshal their so-called resistance in a better way, because Trump's giving them a lot of opportunity to do that.
True.
At what point politically do you start feeling twitchy if the tariff war doesn't work how Trump intends it to?
Uh-oh.
First of all, where did this guy come from? No, with all due respect, this is an
I would never trust these people. So we talked about microaggressions before. That was a racist dog whistle, 1,000,000,000%. Where is this guy even from? He's not American. Just fucking look at him.
idiotic thing to do. And it's proving that the Democrat Party has no play. They don't know what to do right now because Trump is winning on everything. He's strategizing how to fix the economy that Joe Biden drove not only into a ditch, but off a cliff. And this is why the American people were suffering. And it sounds to me like this is a political move to try to put him in good graces with the AOC crowd and the very, very far left radical crowd ahead of another election. This is ridiculous. The American people were sick of the previous attempts of impeaching President Trump before. They don't want to see this again. And I'm embarrassed for this gentleman. I'm embarrassed for that congressman that he's doing that he's fallen to that level to try to impeach President Trump in his first 100 days as he tries to save us from the serious missteps of Joe Biden and that administration that almost broke the backs of every American in this country.
True.
What about the fentanyl that's no longer pouring across the border? What about the lives that are saved there? What about a president who's trying to end a war that's killing thousands, tens of thousands of people and costing all kinds of our treasure over in Ukraine? What about that? No, he's trying to concentrate on something to make people all of a sudden know who he is so that he can raise money and run for re-election. I find it despicable. I really do.
True.
Congressman, you're despicable.
Well, that's just what.
No, the action is despicable. I don't know this congressman. I find his actions despicable and political. Rather than going to work every day and fighting for the American people in his district, he's trying to thwart President Trump as President Trump works very hard to try to save this country and get us on the right track.
So
okay,
brave.
Congressman, you're doing despicable things.
Well, look, he has failed on economy. Our relationship with our allies.
He's not failed on the economy.
Not impeachable.
Her saying this, he has not failed in the economy. This is the cringiest version of that one movie, the Don't Look Up movie, where you're like, ooh, this is too much. It's too on the nose. Like, it would never be like this extreme, right? The economy's actually fine right now. Actually, everything is A-okay right now.
Look, he said I understand, but on day one, he said he's going to fix Ukraine war. He hasn't done that in 100 days.
True.
Nothing he said he's going to do he has done.
True.
And, economy is in terrible shape. His tariffs are totally
random,
unproductive. And auto industry, I represent Detroit, Michigan. The auto industry is hurting. Auto workers are losing their jobs. Auto factories in America are closing. He hasn't thought this through. When you impose tariffs, you got to be ready to have manufacturing happening in America. I agree that more manufacturing needs to happen in America, but it doesn't happen just because he raises tariffs on foreign countries.
True.
You need to invest in manufacturing. This is a process that takes tens of years to get this done.
Okay, let me bring in. All right, let me bring in.
Is this a congressman out of Michigan? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Is she gonna try to hit him up with like a Dearborn thing, or because he's not? What? Well, hold on. Oh no! I'm sorry. Maybe My racism was preempting her racism. Maybe she's going to talk about like Rust Belt or something about manufacturing. My bad.
I represent, and you're not for President Trump. You're not for the tariffs that are going to single-handedly save the American auto industry. Good luck. Good luck getting reelected.
Look, our car prices are going to go up. Domestic cars are going to be more expensive. Foreign cars are going to be more expensive. People won't be able to afford buy a car.
The American middle class is going to be bolstered and is going to come back alive, and they're going to be able to afford to buy things. And this is, you know, we talked about this last time around. The American middle class was practically gone when President Trump stepped foot 100 days into the Oval Office. Give him a little bit of a chance here. 100 days is a lot to turn around Joe Biden, who, as I said, destroyed the American economy and continued to destroy manufacturing.
All right, Cheng?
Yeah. So first of all, the propaganda is getting tiresome.
True.
Trump has done a brilliant job. You can't find one thing to criticize him over. And, you know, and Joe Biden had destroyed the economy. It was record low unemployment. So you're being preposterous. No one believes you. Everyone realizes it was the tariffs. They had a perfectly good economy handed to him. And at this point has shattered it to pieces. So I'm getting sick of the propaganda. I'm also getting sick of the, you know, with all due respect, this is idiotic. That's not all due respect. So I'm not sure you have good command of the English language. Okay. All right. Then don't say all due respect. Second of all, you're lecturing people about how to get elected. Carrie, let's be honest. Let's be honest, Carrie. You and I are not in a position to lecture people on how to get elected. Okay. You haven't won a lot of elections. Neither have I. Okay. So at least I've helped in winning elections. I'm not sure you have. So, and the brother over here in Michigan has actually won an election. But we're conflating two different things. Okay. Number one, we're talking about the polling. Look, Trump's down and hurt. It doesn't matter how much you guys spin it. We're going to have that play out. But that's not related to impeachment. Whether he's popular or not has nothing to do with impeachment. So I don't even know why the congressman brought that up, to be honest. And I think that this impeachment thing is way too premature. What, are you going to get enough Republicans on board? There's no way you are, right? On the other hand, are there actual good grounds for it? There are. You're just not going to be able to execute it. The grounds for impeachment are doing things that are illegal or unconstitutional. Has he subverted the will of Congress? Many, many times. They appropriated money, he refuses to spend it. Or he's spending money that they didn't appropriate. Or he's taking powers like the power to tariff that Congress has, or the power to declare war that Congress has. I know that last one every president abuses. But we have massive violations of the Constitution here. The Supreme Court says bring this guy back, Abrego Garcia. Not only that, there was a clear do not deport order, and he violates that order and then admits that it was a mistake, and he still won't bring him back. The problem there isn't immigration, it's due process, which is the cornerstone of Western civilization.
But Cheng, do you
and others, look, we can go back and blame others.
Okay, but look, Michelle Obama piped up about this immigration stuff on X, and I replied to her, and my replies had gazillions of retweets, because all I said was, as far as I'm aware, her own husband deported over 3 million people.
Oh, the deporter-in-chief comments. He loves this one. He loves this talking point so much. I don't know why, but he loves it.
People in 8 years. And no one can persuade me that all of those were done with perfect due process, right? But I don't remember anything like the cacophony of outrage from the left when that was going down.
Say the line.
And Obama, I've said this before many times, he was the deporter-in-chief, was his nickname in Mexico.
I'm coming.
He couldn't get people out of the country fast enough.
Yeah.
Why was it fine for Obama? And why do liberals just try and pretend that never happened?
When you said it was fine for Obama, and why do liberals pretend that it never happened? I noticed that you're calling him deporter-in-chief. Who the fuck do you think gave him that nickname? Where do you think that name came from? Do you think that Republicans were criticizing Obama for deporting too many people? Just curious, Piers.
Happened, and why is it so evil when Trump throws out a lot of people that I would imagine most Americans totally agree with? Yes, there are some. Garcia may well be one or not. We don't really know yet whether he was in this gang or not. If he was, then he deserves to be in the El Salvador hellhole. If he isn't and he's innocent, he deserves to come back. But let's not pretend that most of the people that Trump is kicking out were not on the deportation list already and probably deserve to be thrown out.
Yeah. So, Piers, the beautiful thing about me is that I'm consistent on all these things.
Beautiful.
So when Obama did that, I criticized them. And in fact, when Obama killed Anwar al-Awlaki without due process, I was
Tim
all
loves
over him.
that
That
one.
was outrageous. It was
that's Tim's favorite
and arguably
story.
worse than anything Trump has done. And that's where mainstream media loses all their credibility, and Democratic politicians lose their credibility when they're not even-handed. So that was totally unacceptable. But that doesn't make what Trump is doing acceptable. And Trump has he gone further than Obama in terms of turning people back at the border? When you turn people back at the border, as Trump is doing now and Obama did, that is not unconstitutional. But has he gone further? Yes. Did Obama ignore court orders? No. Did he say we should send American citizens to a foreign country like El Salvador? No. Did Obama say that he'd run for a third term, which is deeply unconstitutional? No. Did Obama kidnap people off the streets of America for criticizing Israel and arrest and deport them? No.
All right, well, hang on. Let me add some.
By the way,
hang on.
Let me finish the thought. There's tons of right-wingers who agree with me. Tucker Carlson agrees. Candace Owens agrees.
Let me add
Joe
some things.
Rogan agrees.
All right, hang on. Let me add some things to your list. Did Obama campaign in 08-09 on a ticket of closing Guantanamo Bay because it was an illegal torture chamber and he was a lawyer? Yes. Is it still open? Yes. Did he deport more people pro rata than any president in history? Yes.
Any
Did he
Obama
drop more
lovers
bombs
out
in a
there?
calendar year outside of World War II
I forgot.
than America's ever dropped in a year ever? Yes. Did he run illegal drone programs that killed innocent people at weddings? Yes. In other words, there are lots of things on Obama's watch. Yeah, right. So my point is, you've got to look at these things in totality. If I was in America, which I'm not, but I'm a proud, visa holder, and I have a home in America, I look at the success on the southern border as absolutely stunning, and yet the amount of coverage that's getting is almost nothing. And it says to me that the media remains.
But whose fault is that, Piers?
Well, it's the mainstream. To me, it's the mainstream media. Well, let me bring in Batia here. Batia, it seems to me that the mainstream media.
No, hold on. You asked me a question. Let me answer it real quick, Piers. So, look. In terms of the criticism of mainstream media that's hypocritical, I just pointed it out. But it's not mainstream media that did this. Trump, if he had just focused on closing the border, right now might be at 55% approval rating, or really high. I mentioned that right in the beginning. But instead, he bungled it because he's a serial bungler. And he keeps testing the limits of his power because he's authoritarian by nature. He didn't have to do those 4 or 5 unconstitutional things that I just listed.
And he'd be
he did
way
it on
better off for
purpose.
it. True.
He's the one punching himself in the face.
True.
So don't blame media for that. That was all Trump.
True.
All right, except that Batia, what I would say is, all right,
that's the propaganda.
Tim, I will come to you in a moment. Let Batia just respond to that first.
Well, all of these marginal cases, when you actually look into them, turn out to be not so marginal. Kilmar Garcia did not have an order not to deport him. He had an order not to deport him to El Salvador. So they sent him to the wrong country. But this person is a wife beater and a gangbanger and a human trafficker. He should have been deported to another country. We were let down as Americans because he got a lot of due process and they just didn't follow through.
That's the real
because
question.
the immigration courts are deeply flawed. You look at these people who were picked up for supposedly criticizing Israel. They both, the two that are in the news a lot, belong to a group called Columbia University Apartheid Divest, which put out literature 100% supporting Hamas and the October 7th attack. That is a violation of a green card. We would never have given somebody a visa who said, I'm going to belong to a group that's going to put out literature in support of Hamas. The 2 children who allegedly are American citizens who were deported, they were not deported. Their mothers were deported, and because their mothers are not sociopaths, they chose to take their children with them rather than calling up and finding someone else to take their 2-year-old children. So all of these supposedly liminal cases are actually nothing of the sort. There has been no constitutional crisis. This congressman seems to think that having bad polling numbers is an impeachable offense, is somehow a high crime and misdemeanor. It is utterly laughable, and it's because the Democrats have no agenda. Donald Trump is running to the left of them on economics and to the left of them on fighting wars and being anti-war and trying to get us out of different things and trying to settle wars. And he is a social moderate. He's not even a conservative. There is not a single value that the Democrats hold that they are not willing to immediately abandon if Donald Trump starts to defend it. It was the Democrats who thought that we had to control the border to protect working class wages. And now all you see is Democrats out there demanding free trade and demanding more access to China. You see Democrats literally sharing Chinese propaganda because it's against Trump. They have chosen China over their own working class voters. And Congressman, I'm sorry, but the UAW and the Teamsters have both endorsed the tariffs. You're in a lot of trouble in Michigan.
Yeah, well, look, auto factories are being closed. Auto workers are losing jobs. Look, the unconstitutional things. This president tried to the pump and dump scheme. Remember the memes that he profited from? Personally profited from. Remember that the freedom of speech, the lawyers who had fought against him, he intimidated those and then.
But what about Congressman? What about the sustained lawfare that was waged against Trump by the left?
Lawfare is whenever you're
and by the way, one of the most self-harming acts of lawfare ever waged, because all it did was make Trump more popular and ended up getting him re-elected. So it was cretinously stupid to do it, but there can be no doubt that the left conspired collectively to try and take
no proof
Trump
of any
down,
of that,
put
by
him
the
in
way,
prison.
but okay,
yeah,
LOL.
people shooting him, literally trying to kill him, and all of this led to Trump being in the White House. The Democrats have got their own backyard to clean up first before they start issuing any kind of, well, you know, isn't this all terrible? When the way you treated Trump, many would argue, was despicable. Let me bring in Tim.
Yeah, what do you got for us, Tim?
I have a favor to ask of this congressman, and excuse me, I hope Cenk joins me in this. Congressman, will you file articles of impeachment against Barack Obama for the extrajudicial assassination of Abdulrahman al-Awlaki?
Wow.
I was not a member of Congress then. I am now. I have seen,
and we can convict him and put him in prison if you want to file those.
I have seen the unconstitutional, illegal activities of Donald Trump, and those are the ones that I am holding him responsible for.
Nobody cared when Obama murdered American citizens.
Murdered,
especially a 16-year-old kid who is not a target.
Obama is not the president right now. Is Donald Trump is the president? Is the people are hurting? He is the one who is grabbing power. He is the one who's taking power away from Congress, and the funds that Congress has appropriated, he is not releasing those funds. He's putting a hold on that. He's the one that illegally put Doge and a unelected, unconfirmed Elon Musk in charge of it. He's the one who threw out that reporter from AP, from White House, trampling on freedom of speech of the press.
You're right. I should get permanent access to the White House. Otherwise, my free speech is being violated. So I'm going to go to the White House right now and insist that I'm much more well-known than that reporter is. So it's a clear violation of 1A if they don't give me a pass, right?
Well, he's used his power, his position, to intimidate media. He's used that to
so is Obama. This is ridiculous. When Anwar al-Awlaki was assassinated, an extrajudicial assassination, and his 16-year-old son by Obama, the Democrats defended this and they said he should have had a better father. No one cared. Nobody cared. I know Cenk cared. I know he's talked about it. I'm mad about it too. So now when you come out and you say Trump's going to be impeached because he's doing things that are unpopular, I'm personally offended.
It's not unpopular. It's illegal.
Murdered
illegal
Americans. No one did anything. And you could.
Just as a heads up, the reason why these things aren't even remotely the same, although dipshits like Tim, who don't give a fuck about real law and any of that shit, like to pretend they are, the reason why these are so different is, in terms of how you would treat them, is when Obama wasn't sure whether or not he had the authority to actually order that attack, which was against an American citizen, but it was because he was part of, was it the Taliban or Al-Qaeda? When Obama wasn't sure, Obama went to his Office of Legal Counsel and he asked, he said, do I have the authority as president to do this? I'm not actually sure. And they authored a memo and they went, through some of the arguments. And their conclusion at the end of the day was, yeah, we think that the president, if somebody is conducting operations as a foreign enemy, right, if they've joined like a terrorist organization against the United States, that you do have the authorization to order that attack. And it wouldn't necessarily be a due process issue. Now, you can say whether or not you agree or disagree with that decision. And I'm sure there's like probably phenomenal arguments that you can make on both sides of that. But it's not remotely the same as Donald Trump, who will literally say to his DOJ, he doesn't ask his DOJ questions. He gives them orders. He says, I want to do this thing. I don't care if it's legal or illegal, and I need you to tell me how to make it possible. Like, it's not even remotely the same thing.
Right now, file those impeachment articles, we could get a criminal hearing and a conviction of Barack Obama for the murder of a 16-year-old. The 16-year-old, Abdulrahman al-Awlaki, was not a combatant. He was at a civilian restaurant in a country we are not at war with.
Being in a civilian country, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're actively participating in combat hostilities. That's not how any of that works, but yeah.
And why won't anyone do anything about it? I'll throw a cherry on top. When Donald Trump in his first term, when he first gets elected, he ordered a commando raid in Yemen, which reportedly killed a 7-year-old American girl as well. We don't have the same evidence on that one. I want that criminally investigated as well. How about you pursue those cases? But you know what? You won't, because when it comes to bloviating nonsense pertaining to the economy or what Trump may or may not be doing, no one ever goes after the war machine. No one ever tries to target the extrajudicial authorities of the executive branch and their unilateral authority to declare war. There's never been a war declared since World War II, and you're not going to do anything about it. No one will.
We got an authorization for the use of military force in Iraq, so I don't know. Is there like a more formal declaration that people are looking for when they say stuff like that? I don't understand what that talking point is, but.
Look, this president has personally gained through the meme call.
Also, what an unbelievable whataboutism. You want to impeach Donald Trump? Have you thought about impeaching Barack Obama, though?
This president has personally gained through the deal that he forced and intimidated.
Well, do you believe, okay, but let me ask you then, Congressman, do you believe that Joe...
Oh, that's true as well. That's also a huge difference. It's not like Barack Obama personally hated this dude. Well, maybe he did. Was that ever looked into?
Biden personally gained from what his son was up to in Ukraine, working for energy companies for which...
You realize that nothing ever came from any of that ever, right, Piers? Where are the criminal charges for that? Who filed charges? What happened for that? Oh, wait, that was all bullshit.
She had zero experience. And is now given backdated pardons to all his family to protect any proper legitimate legal investigations of what they may or may not have been doing with countries like Ukraine and China. There's a widespread belief they're all putting money in their pockets.
So unbelievably based.
Well, I'm just here as a member of Congress. You know,
yeah, but it seems to me, with respect though, it just seems to me you are so blinded by
excuse me. He can't retroactively impeach somebody. What do you, unless was he in Congress when, I don't know when this guy was elected, but what do you, like you can't impeach Trump unless you go back in time and impeach everybody else, or what?
Totality of hatred to Trump and everything to do with him, that you can't see the wood for the trees. You can't praise him for anything. And actually, you're not interested in any crimes committed by Democrat presidents. You're not interested in any money guzzling behavior by the previous incumbent of the White House. All you care about is Trump. And it would have been a little bit more intellectually honest if you had cared a little bit more about what your own party
He wasn't in office. What do you mean? Why are we even talking about this right now? Hello?
Well, look, I had 12 in-person town halls in the last 40 days. I've talked with hundreds and
he was in office, but none of them have brought it up if he was.
All across America. And people
how do you counter Hunter being hired? Just we live in a capitalist, people can work for whoever they want. The problem is you can't counter it really, because there's two types of people in the world. There's people like Tim Pool, who I've actually heard Tim talk enough that he does know how some of this business stuff works, but they'll lie about it. Or it's just people who just unfortunately just don't know how business works. When you've got these boards that people sit on, people don't sit on a board of directors or sit on any of these boards because they have expertise in operating the particular companies. If that was the case, they would be like an operations manager. They might be like a C-level exec of some kind if they're really good, or they would go and work for the company itself or work in consulting or something, right? You sit on boards for a variety of reasons. Because you get clout doing it, because you have connections that people can use, because you might be, like a big investor. Like there's a million reasons why you might sit on a board like this. Look at how many different billion boards that like Peter Thiel sits on and all this shit. People sit on these boards for there's a ton of different people that sit on boards like this for reasons that are basically identical. Everybody knows this. Sometimes it's just good to have the name there. It just makes it look more authentic. Now, if you want to prove that Hunter Biden was trading on his dad's name in an improper way, fine. But the Republicans had years to do that and they found nothing. So what are you going to do?
What about now? Donald Trump is the president today. He's the president for the last 100 days. His unconstitutional activities is what we are talking about here. And that's what my impeachment action is all about.
All right.
So that's really why I'm here.
This is just a way to raise money.
Can I defend the congressman a little bit?
This is just an
quick favor.
attempt
So
to
look,
raise
guys,
money for this
you're all
congressman.
you're all going to whataboutisms here, and I can understand why, because Trump's in bad shape.
True.
So you're going back to Obama. Look, I agree with Tim on the Anwar al-Awlaki. I'm the guy who brought it up. I wonder if Tim agrees with me on cutting the Pentagon, because Tim, you and I agreed on cutting the Pentagon when I was on his show. And now all of a sudden they're not cutting. They're adding $150 billion. So they're frauds, right?
True.
Let's be honest about that,
True.
right? So, but we're going to whataboutisms here. We can go back to Grover Cleveland if you guys like, right? We can go back to James Polk if you guys like. But you're trying to distract from what's happening with Trump. I'm perfectly willing to criticize all the other Democrats in the past for all the things that they've done wrong. But right now, we got to rescue the country. And so at this point, there's two different problems. One is that Trump keeps doing things that are unconstitutional. And to your earlier point, Piers, that is not what people voted for. In fact, the reason Trump disavowed Project 2025 was because it was really unpopular. Now that he's actually doing Project 2025, yeah, it's really unpopular.
But what about
That's
this,
not
Cheng?
what
What about
people
this,
wanted.
Cheng?
They just want.
But Cheng, but what about this? Look, I saw what Caroline Levitt said in her statement about 100 days. In his first 100 days, Donald Trump's delivered on hundreds of promises and already accomplished his two most important campaign goals. The border is secure and inflation is ending. The next 100 days will consist of trade deals, peace deals,
We'll see.
and tax cuts. More American greatness on its way. Now, putting aside any partisan...
And just think, if they're willing to say these for also, fuck. There's so many times I'm like making a point. I'm like, why am I even saying this? This is so obvious and so stupid. Sorry. And then I say this again and it just triggers the out of me, right? If you want to say things are going to be good because of some pain now, then just say that. Don't say the first 100 days have been awesome. Say that, yeah, the first 100 days are rough, but it's because, you know, we're building towards something. At least that Milei or whatever, the guy in Argentina, at least he had the balls to say that. I was actually impressed. We were on Anything Else and we read that article and he was like, listen, the first however many days of my presidency are going to suck. They're going to suck. It's going to be rough and we're going to have to make some rough decisions. And it's like, oh, you know, I give him props for saying that. Most people, most politicians especially wouldn't admit something like that. But you can't sit here and say the first 100 days have been great and then we're setting ourselves up for an even greater next 100 days. Like, well, hold on. If you're saying that these 100 days have been great and then you're going to say it's been great in the future, when you say great in the future, is it going to be great like these 100 days have been great? Because if so, that's not very great at all. What do you mean by that?
kind of flavor to all this, and putting aside that clearly right now things look quite bad for Trump, I could easily see a situation in 100 days' time, maybe not quite as quick as that, but certainly not far off it, where he might well have got a number of advantageous trade deals done, including China, where he could have forged peace in Ukraine, bringing an end to that war, and might well have done the same in Gaza, in which case he would be odds on to win the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, this is not, in other words, it's all very turbulent, it's all very chaotic, but I could absolutely see a pathway to that all happening in the next few months. It could happen.
What if he
what if he turned into Santa Claus?
Well,
yeah, what if he turned into
which
Santa
part of that
Claus
do you
and
think may
started
not
giving
happen?
out presents to everybody?
Yeah, but check, which part of that may not happen?
I think all of it might not happen. In fact, Piers, I think absolutely none of that is going to happen. That's why I formed Rebellion PAC to give people a left-wing populist alternative. Real economic populism. People should go check out rebellionpac.com.
Is populism a good word in Europe? I can't tell if it's just Americans have turned this into a fucking good word or whatever. Like, in Europe, when you say populism, is that just like a neutral political descriptor, or does that mean like full retard? No? Okay. Because in America, it's like a good word now. We love like populism, but...
Because we've got guys like Ro Khanna, Richard Ojeda, and other people who are actual populists who are going to do the things that Trump promised on the economic end and has not delivered. So, Piers, could he do one or two trade deals and then call it a day and pretend that he got a victory? He could, but it wasn't a victory. And if he keeps these tariffs on with China and others, soon we're going to have empty shelves. And all of this bloviating is going to be totally irrelevant, because once those empty shelves hit or the higher prices hit, I mean, we had the stock market downturn. That's not even the big problem. He's already hit an iceberg with that. But that's the tip. The actual iceberg is the American people. And when their prices start going up and when they start seeing empty shelves, they're going to be furious because it's the exact opposite.
Like, what are we even doing? I feel like I started learning politics at the wrong time. I wish I would have started fucking Vyvanse earlier in my life. Because I don't even know what I know about politics anymore. What is this town hall? We have Cuomo. Why? He's not in any elected position. And I think he's running for mayor of New York. We've got Bill O'Reilly, who has been out of media, mainstream at least, for, like a fucking decade? And then we've got Stephen A. Smith. Like, I don't even know what... And Oh, wait, I thought Trump was here too. Trump's not here. Oh, it's just these two. Okay, I guess it's just a fun media thing then. I don't even know who, like, anything. Oh, this is the other Cuomo. I mixed them up like the Paul brothers a lot. I don't even know what the fuck is going on right now. I don't know what anything is anymore. Listen, it's all just YouTube content. That's what it is, all right?
Of what they voted for.
So wait, so he's not even the running for office? Wait, what does the other one do? Does he still work at CNN or did he quit? Oh, President Trump is on the phone. Gotcha. Okay, link me the VOD of that after, I guess. We can listen to the same talking points again, I guess.
I'm going to be furious because it's the exact opposite of what they voted for. And then you guys can come on here and start talking about Chester
I'm definitely going to get everybody
but it ain't
back.
going to make a difference.
Don't worry, I'm going to get everybody back in 100 days because I've got a feeling it won't play out how you think, Chet. But I may be wrong. Carrie.
I love the fact that Cenk calls what he does all day bloviating. I agree, and I think if we pulled that, most of America would agree. But President Trump has to do the hard work. He's assembled an administration full of hardworking human beings. They sometimes they have a misstep, but they're heading in the right direction for America. It's not an easy job. He's taking a lot of criticism because people like Cenk have to bloviate all day, to use his words, and he's got to have something to talk about. And he would lose the audience he has if he started talking about how incredible this agenda has been and the rolling out of this agenda.
What's been incredible about it? Hello?
We're living in a real world here, and we're having to pick up the pieces and clean up after a dismal administration that the congressman sat by and didn't do anything about. First of all, I've never heard of this gentleman. I never heard him talk.
Do you not know, like, I mean, do you know every single person in the House? What do you mean you've never heard of him? I'm sure there's a lot of people in the House you've never heard of before. What is the point of that comment? Okay.
Talk about how disastrous the economy was under Joe Biden. And I think it's really appalling for the people of Michigan. It used to be a middle-class state. It is an important state when it comes to our automaking here in America, the industry. And to hear that there is a congressman from Michigan who is opposed to this tariff plan to bring back the manufacturing we so desperately need and the middle class needs in Michigan and all 50 states. It's pretty shocking.
You got to be ready to bring manufacturing back. Trump has done nothing to establish incentives.
I also, and again, like, sorry, you should elaborate, Destiny. Would there have been, in your view, an optimal time for yourself to start learning more about politics? I just mean it would be interesting to like analyze a political system like within, like while politics is happening. But like right now, it's just, this is like, politics has become like YouTube, basically. Unironically, there's just nothing, there's no legal analysis to be done. There's no anything. It's just all retarded. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Incentives to bring back
and all 50 states. It's pretty shocking.
You got to be ready to bring manufacturing back. Trump has done nothing to.
She looks like the moon emoji.
Establish incentives.
I was going to say this too, and I don't even know. I don't know who knows anything about anything. I was going to say, I wish that at least like real business people would come and talk about actual businesses. Like who's making investments in the United States in this environment? But then all the quote unquote experts that want to do social media are all fucking retarded. Like your Bill Ackman's, fuck, what was the name of the other King Dick Suck dude? He has that podcast, Chamath or whatever. Well, maybe these guys aren't experts though. Maybe they just lie about their background. I don't know. Like these guys all end up being fucking retards as well. So it's like, what? I don't even know why. What is it? What is happening? Why is everybody so fucking stupid? Where are my technocrats at? I thought that's what the software dudes were supposed to bring us. Technocracy.
Is to bring manufacturing to America. And just putting these tariffs on foreign countries just doesn't solve the problem. We are...
True. The reality is it's probably, if you want to be on like social media and do social media stuff, that probably just selects for fucking retards. That's just how it works. That's probably that. That's probably the answer.
Starting to see auto factories closing. We're starting to see auto prices going up. We're starting to see auto workers losing jobs. These tariffs are not good for Michigan, and these tariffs are not good for America, and these tariffs are raising American prices. This is like a Trump sales tax on consumer goods for America.
Let me bring in Batia.
Don't even say like a Trump sales tax. It is a sales tax. That's what it is. That's what tariffs are, basically.
I mean, Batia, it's interesting to me to see a number of Trump, big supporters breaking ranks a bit on tariffs. Elon Musk clearly is very anti them. The Barstool Sports founder Dave Portnoy being very critical. Bill Ackman, the big billionaire investor, Ken Griffin, another billionaire investor, they've all spoken out against them as well. And we've just seen what I would think is quite a worrying moment for the Trump camp, which is what's happened in Canada, where you've got a liberal candidate who's come from, an apparent obvious defeat to seize victory by running on an anti-Trump ticket because of the way Trump spoke about Canada.
Oops.
I just think he's got to be careful, Donald Trump. I could absolutely see this working, but I could also see it blowing up in his face. It's a high-risk stakes that he's playing with here.
Yeah, rich people hate tariffs because they're supposed to. They are class warfare on behalf of the working class against the elites who have.
I'm so glad. Like, people are like, Destiny, you were too mean to some people, whatever, and I have regrets about not being mean enough. I don't have regrets. I'm so happy I said that this lady was evil when I talked to her. I'm so happy I said she was evil. God, because she is. She is an evil person.
Pillaged America's middle class for the last 40 years. We have sold out our children's future to China, which owns just trillions of dollars of U.S. Treasury bonds. That is not good. We get cheap crap from China. They get our children's future. Our kids are going to be paying off the interest on that debt for generations.
And who was the one that expanded on the debt so much, by the way?
And the pharmaceuticals we need to fight the pandemics that come from China. They manufacture the ships we are going to need to fight China, our greatest adversary.
But I agree with you. I agree with you. Listen,
I know.
But I agree with you. The question is
she's on a soy rant. Let her go.
It was going to.
Is the tactic? Here's my question for you. Is the tactic? I don't think anyone. Hang on. I don't think anyone disagrees with the overarching narrative that Trump has laid out, which is China's been ripping off America for decades. It has. As you say, it owns a lot of American debt, very bad for America. All the experts in the American economy have led to an economy with $37 trillion of American debt. If that's a success, I'd hate to see a failure. This is an economy that Elon Musk keeps warning is extremely perilous longer term.
Who the fuck? Who did he just say that Elon Musk says? Who the fuck is Elon Musk to talk about any of that? Why do we give a fuck? What?
If that's a success, I'd hate to see a failure. This is an economy that Elon Musk keeps warning is extremely perilous longer term. And could easily end up with America going bankrupt. So Trump is doing radical stuff. I get it. The question is, will the way he's going about this, as many economic experts fear, will it blow up in his face and make things a lot worse? It could.
So here's the point, Piers. No one else had the guts, the courage, or a plan for one else.
It could.
So here's the point, Piers. No one else had the guts, the courage, or a plan
to fly 4 commercial airliners into United States civilian buildings, god damn it.
For how to address this. Getting yourself weaned off of an addiction to cheap crap from China was always going to be difficult. And that is why nobody did anything about it, even though, as you say, Piers, we all agree that this had to happen. There was no easy way to do that. There is no easy way to get countries around the world who have been fleecing us with their tariffs to suddenly decide, oh, you know what, maybe this is not okay. Maybe we should stop enriching our elites on the backs of the American working class. What Trump did was it's really amazing. There is now a 10% global tariff, which the world is actually relieved about because it came down from the heights of Liberation Day. Like, do you understand what a feat that was? That is seen as an improvement from countries that believed about because it came global tariff, which the world is actually relieved about because it came down from the heights of Liberation Day. Like, do you understand what a feat that was? That is seen as an...
Like, if I were to lock some chick up in my basement and beat the shit out of her every single day and rape her, and then on day 20, we just rape her, and we're like, she was happy that she just got raped on day 20. Do you know how many beatings it took to get her to that point? What the fuck is his talking point? This is the dumbest talking point I've ever heard in my life. What?
improvement from countries that for decades have been fleecing us with their own tariffs. So this was always going to be hard. I have not heard a single other plan for how to get American manufacturing back to America. And it's just nonsense that Trump hasn't done that. He has $1.5 trillion in manufacturing committed since the day that he took office. Nobody else was able to do that. And to do that, you need a carrot and you need a stick, because American corporations are not suddenly going to wake up and be like, oh, maybe having a sense of what it means to have prosperity for our entire nation is more important than our quarterly reports. That was never going to happen without a little bit of pain.
Okay, I want to wrap things by asking all of you. I want to ask all of you to give Trump a grade. We can have A to E or an.
Okay, what are the grades? Wait, where'd Tim go? Did we kick him off? Did he leave?
F for fail.
Jank is going to give him a D+. She's giving him an A. The lady over here is going to give him an A- because she doesn't want to seem biased. And hopefully he gives him an F. That's my guess.
Cenk, this is the 100-day grade for the President, Trump.
D+, A-
Yeah.
and F.
Look, because he's so wildly unconstitutional, I want to give him an F-, but I'm fair. He did close the border, and he is taking a lot of action. I think it's bad action, but at least it's something. So I'll give him a solid D.
Okay, close, solid D. Okay, all right.
D. Batia?
A+, but I really admire Cenk because I see
A+, off by a half. That's okay. Two,
struggling
we're close,
to be fair, and even though I disagree with you, I admire that.
Can I adjust? She's going to give him an A instead of an A+. They wouldn't both do A+. She's got to do something different. Let's do A.
To give him an A+. I think this has been. I never expected a president to fulfill this many campaign promises ever. Certainly not in 100 days.
Before I ask
so
you, Carrie, just to be clear, you can't go above an A+.
You can't do 2 pluses.
No.
I'm going to give him an A+ because he has followed through on his campaign promises.
Jesus
the people of this country
Christ.
are getting what they voted for, and they're ecstatic about it. And I believe that this congressman will really regret the day when he looks back historically and sees what an incredible, transformative president.
Remember what I said about this is actually like the perfect microcosm of kind of the problem that I complained about before. I complained about this when I did my event in Detroit a few days ago. I complained about this on the Piers Morgan show, where I said the reason why I don't like to give anything in front of these people because they won't give you anything back. They won't give you anything back, right? Cenk says he tries to be fair. I'm not going to give him the F-, even though he's acting unconstitutionally, has passed an executive order to revoke birthright citizenship, which, by the way, was Cenk born in America? Or would that literally revoke Cenk's citizenship? Cenk gave a D to a president that signed an executive order that would revoke his citizenship. And they both gave him an A+. Bro.
Trump will go down in history. He will be embarrassed about it. I cannot take this fake impeachment garbage seriously from a guy who looks like he pinned a squirrel on his head.
What? I don't even know what level of racism. What does that even mean? Wait, is she saying he's he's that Indian? Oh my God, she has like advanced Indians. I thought he was like from India Indian. Or is he Native American Indian? Or wait, did she mix it up? Did I mix it up? Wait, do Indians from India, do they do things with squirrels on their hair? It's a joke that his hair looks like a wig? What? It just looks like normal hair. Or is it a wig? I don't know.
Needs to get serious and start fighting.
Actually,
start fighting for the people.
She might not even be racist. You're just insulting him. Maybe my mind is running to racism so much. I'm sorry. Coming off the whole Hassan, Ethan stuff, I just, maybe she's being mean.
Squirrel on his head. He needs to get serious and start fighting for the people of Michigan and stop fighting the president who's trying to help the people of Michigan.
When you don't have a good argument, you attack personally. That's what you do. Look, this president has done illegal, unconstitutional activities. He has ruined the economy. People having buyer's remorse about him.
Okay, give me a grade, Congressman.
I would give him an F minus.
F minus.
The damage that he has created.
And here's a fact
Hell
for you,
the
Carrie
fuck
Lee,
yes.
you may want to think
Thank you.
about. The congressman, I've just been told, is 70 years old. You look about 50. What's your...
That guy is 70? No shot. What?
Great. Well, he should
Well,
be a
it's
little.
not about
He should
me,
be.
it's about America.
He should
It's
be
about
more
America.
wise. At the age of 70, I would hope he'd be more wise in
Can
actually
we at least agree he looks the most youthful 70-year-old I think we've ever had on Uncensored. So he may have a squirrel on his head, not my words, yours, Miss Lake, but he looks pretty good for 70.
Well,
He looks
just want
amazing
America
for
to
70.
Look, I want America to look good and America's economy to do better and American people be able to afford things and have a better life.
Well, the beauty of all this is I can get you all back in 100 days. We would have asked Tim Pool, but we lost him. We had a technical issue there. I'm going to think that Tim might have given him a B, I think, if he was fair. Possibly an A, but I think he may have gone B.
I think he would have given him an A.
Maybe.
Oh
we'll
my
find
God,
out
Jesus.
afterwards. And if I got that wrong, I'll correct it next week. But thank you all very much to my team. And we'll get you all back to talk about
Piers.
200 days and 300 days. There are only 10,000 days left of Trump, unless he decides to run again. So we shall see. We shall see how it goes. But I appreciate you all coming on. Thank you very much.
Epic.
Thank you.
Piers.
Piers Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent. The only boss around here is me. If you enjoy our show, we ask for only one simple thing. Hit subscribe on YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.